So who's doing the introductions? Ashna.
Ashna looking.
Now I'm scared.
Just a 1-minute intro session, so that's it.
You promised me that. She wrote me a short note about an intro to me, and I was discovering things about myself which I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. The last time Ashna interviewed.
See, it happened with Varun also.
Yeah, I found mine quite interesting.
No, as long as it's right, it's fine. As you've discovered it, fine. But as long as it's right, it's all right.
What I was
No, the
surprised is
last
that you picked up from my story. I mean, from the one picture of mine.
I know. Wow. No, I have worked and known Ashna for long now, very long. We've had long conversations about a lot of stuff. But yeah, the way she just put it all together, wow. I actually showed it to my wife, by the way.
Oh, interesting.
A good part of the groundwork was done by Sejal, so I will pass the credit on to her. So the research was done by Sejal.
Okay.
No, the last time
come across and pull it out.
Yeah, the last time Ashna introduced me, I had tears in my eyes.
Yeah, but this time I'm not introducing you, Krish. I'm
Yeah,
introducing
don't,
and telling them that you know
do
Krish.
that.
Yeah, I don't want to
I
repeat
can do
it.
without the tears in my eyes. Yeah.
Sejal, if you're playing the video, we can't see it. So only they can see it, is it? Is that how it is?
Hey, and welcome everyone to our second webinar, The Economics of Candidate Experience. Let's dive right in and talk about why candidate engagement is as crucial as a secret ingredient in your HR's best recipe. And to help us understand this, we have a fun story involving none other than Gru from Despicable Me. Picture this. Gru is on a mission to hire minions for his Despicable Me corporation, aiming to expand his technical support team for building fantastically fiendish machines. After a rigorous selection process, he picks 10 of the brightest and most talented minions. Gru has poured $10,000 into this recruitment adventure, covering everything from setting up the process to HR costs, social media promotions, interviews, exams, and perhaps even a banana or two as incentives. The big day arrives, and Gru is ready to welcome his new recruits with open arms. But lo and behold, only 7 minions show up. 3 minions have bailed.
One suddenly decided that villainy isn't their style.
Another has some mysterious personal reasons.
The third is still pondering whether this is their true calling.
Poor Gru is left scratching his head and facing the grim reality of redoing the entire recruitment process, which means another $10,000 down the drain. Yikes! Now, imagine if Gru had a Cengage by his side. Our candidate engagement services would have kept those minions intrigued, informed, and excited about their new roles. By maintaining regular communication and addressing any concerns early on, we could have ensured that all 10 minions marched through the door on day 1. You see, candidate engagement isn't just about getting people to sign on the dotted line. It's about creating a captivating and positive experience from the moment they apply until they officially join the team. At Cengage, we specialize in making candidates feel valued, understood, and part of something special. Gru's hiring saga reminds us all that in today's competitive world, keeping candidates engaged is more important than ever. It's not just about filling positions, it's about securing the best talent and avoiding last-minute drop-offs. By investing in a stellar candidate experience, companies can save time, money, and a whole lot of headaches. So let Cengage be your sidekick in this recruitment adventure. We'll help you keep your candidates engaged, minimize hiring risks, and ensure that your recruitment efforts are a smashing success. Because every great team deserves an even greater experience. Cheers to better hiring and happier candidates. Hey, and welcome everyone to our second webinar, The Economics of Candidate Experience. Let's dive right in and talk about why candidate engagement is as crucial as a secret ingredient in your HR's best recipe. And to help us understand this, we have a fun story involving none other than Gru from Despicable Me. Picture this. Gru is on a mission to hire minions for his Despicable Me corporation, aiming to expand his technical support team for building fantastically fiendish machines. after a rigorous selection process, he picks 10 of the brightest and most talented minions. Gru has poured $10,000 into this recruitment adventure, covering everything from setting up the process to HR costs, social media promotions, interviews, exams, and perhaps even a banana or two as incentives. The big day arrives, and Gru is ready to welcome his new recruits with open arms. But lo and behold, only 7 minions show up. 3 minions have bailed.
One suddenly decided that villainy isn't their style.
Another has some mysterious personal reasons.
The third is still pondering whether this is their true calling.
Poor Gru is left scratching his head and facing the grim reality of redoing the entire recruitment process, which means another $10,000 down the drain. Yikes! Now, imagine if Gru had a Cengage by his side. Our candidate engagement services would have kept those minions intrigued, informed, and excited about their new roles. By maintaining regular communication and addressing any concerns early on, we could have ensured that all 10 minions marched through the door on day 1. You see, candidate engagement isn't just about getting people to sign on the dotted line. It's about creating a captivating and positive experience from the moment they apply until they officially join the team. At Cengage, we specialize in making candidates feel valued, understood, and part of something special. Gru's hiring saga reminds us all that in today's competitive world, keeping candidates engaged is more important than ever. It's not just about filling positions, it's about securing the best talent and avoiding last-minute drop-offs. By investing in a stellar candidate experience, companies can save time, money, and a whole lot of headaches. So let Cengage be your sidekick in this recruitment adventure. We'll help you keep your candidates engaged, minimize hiring risks, and ensure that your recruitment efforts are a smashing success. Because every great team deserves an even greater experience. Cheers to better hiring and happier candidates.
Great. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Thank you very much once again for joining us. We are ready to start. I think it's 4:04 and we should be good to go. Ashna, we can start by you introducing the panel. But before Ashna goes, thank you very much once again. We're very excited, but extremely grateful and honored to have you here on board with us.
Thanks, Krish.
Great. Thank you, Krish. Good evening, everybody. My name is Ashna. I'm the co-founder of Cengage. I hope you can hear me clearly. I want to take a moment to first thank all our panelists for being with us here today. I will introduce each one of them to you. We have with us Varun Garg. Varun is a dynamic HR leader with over 20 years of experience in the retail industry, Walmart, Nike, Landmark Group, to name a few. His commitment to continuous learning is evident. He has a chartered fellowship from CIPD. He has a business strategy certificate from Harvard Business School. When he's not shaping HR strategies, he's conquering other newer heights. And literally, he's either trekking snow-capped mountains or diving deep under. He's a fitness enthusiast. His leadership style is rooted in compassion and strategic thinking, ensuring that both people and business thrive. Varun, happy to have you here with us. Looking forward to hearing your insights on this topic. Our second panelist that we have today is Ajay Krishnan Kuti. Say hello to Ajay, who is the head of talent acquisition for the APJ region at Siemens Healthineers. With a career spanning over 22 years, Ajay has a knack for attracting and retaining talent. It's not all work and no play for Ajay. In fact, he's known as the Friday enthusiast, and he brings a burst of energy and positivity to the workplace. Apart from his professional life, he has a deep love for our culture and heritage. His leadership style is a perfect blend of empathy and strategic thinking, making him a beloved leader and a mentor for many. The third panelist that we have today is Sirshendu Mukherjee. If you're in the world of HR, you probably have already heard of him. He's the group CHRO at Narayana Health and has been instrumental in changing the HR landscape. He's all about making healthcare more accessible and affordable for everyone, aligning with the interests of insurers, hospitals, and patients. His passion for creating an engaged workforce has resulted in his team bagging many awards. What sets Sirshendu apart is his complete hands-on approach. He's a mentor, guide, and is always ready to lend a helping hand and share his wisdom. So if you're looking for a good conversation, be it casual or to discuss HR strategy, Sishandu is the guy that you should go to. Ajay, Sishandu, happy to have you here with us. All of you know Krish Hanumantu, my co-founder of Ace Engage today. So he will moderate this session. I'm not going to introduce him all over again. We've done this before. So Krish, over to you and looking forward. Thank you.
Cool. Done. Hey, thank you very much, Ashna. And thank you once again, Shishindu, Ajay, and Varun. Extremely grateful. And thank you very much for the audience. All of you who've joined in. It is a Friday evening. We are hoping to kind of make it exciting for the next 1 hour. So thank you very much, everyone. Happy to be here. Before I start, let me set some context, right? So let's face it. So all of us here who've done, some kind of recruitment in the past has definitely experienced candidates declining the offer in the very last minute. And for some strange reason, a lot of them won't even feel the need to pick up the phone, tell you why they're declining. And this experience of having people decline the offer in the last minute can be extremely frustrating and demoralizing. And I've had several conversations with leaders where they talk about the one time where they felt very let down would be when this candidate just decided not to land up without any prior intimation, etc., etc. Now, having said that, Ace Engage does work with a lot of companies on the whole candidate engagement program piece, and I'd like to believe that many organizations, in fact, most organizations, have taken uh, several steps towards this whole strengthening this whole experience piece, and a lot of people are doing what it takes to ensure that candidate engagement is given top priority. But having said that, and my first question goes to Varun. Uh, while everybody understands the importance of candidate engagement, everybody understands why and how candidate engagement translates to better joining ratios, translates to better brand perception. But in spite of knowing all of this, organizations tend to fall short. And for some reason, they are unable to provide this absolute wow experience consistently. So my question to you, Varun, and I'm sure the audience will also be curious to know, what, according to you, are the challenges that organizations face, and why do you think they struggle, and why are they not able to make sure that this experience is consistent, across across time? And two, um, do you think it is a function of how much budget the recruitment teams are provided with? So, for example, if you had a lot of money, would you be able to ensure candidate engagement is consistent? And therefore, what is the connection between budgets versus experience? And that's my question to you, Varun.
Good question, Krish. I mean, it's when I look back, I think the candidate engagement is pretty much left to the recruiter who has been in touch with the candidate throughout the hiring journey. And the expectation is that that recruiter will continue to stay engaged with the candidate or keep the candidate engaged right up to the point of joining. Or in some organization, there is an onboarding team which starts engaging with the candidate. But what we tend to forget is that from a recruiter's point of view, they have pretty big targets to achieve in their recruitment itself. Recruiter's job is like a sales job, right? So they are under tremendous pressure to make sure that they are responding to the candidates they're actively speaking to prior to offer, that they are managing their internal stakeholders, they are scheduling interviews. So I think the keeping candidates engaged post offer before joining takes a backseat. It just takes the second priority, and that's where things potentially go wrong.
Right.
Now, in terms of is there a budget for it? I think again, uh, the focus hasn't been there. I would say that because it's the whole candidate engagement budget is somewhere wrapped within the hiring budget, and the hiring budget, as we know, is divided towards either recruitment agency fee or in the entire joining of the employee.
Right.
So I think yes, I personally take this on myself as well, that I've failed in past to set aside a specific budget and a specific focus to making sure that this experience, the journey from an offer to joining, is actually taken care of, is actually focused,
Right.
and someone is there to handhold. and coming from a Middle East perspective, I mean, I've been in Middle East for now 14 years. This journey is even more complex because there is just not the notice period that the candidate is serving. There are formalities regarding visa cancellation, visa application, and several other things. So yes, I think that's a gap. It's unfair for us to expect the recruiter to be able to fill that gap, and there should be a higher degree of focus on this area.
Sure. Cool. Hey, thank you so much for that, Tarun. Ajay, do you want to add something to this from a budget standpoint? I mean, you've led a lot of teams. I know you hold a lot of budget, but do you really use that budget for candidate engagement? You're on mute, Ajay.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now, Chris.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with Varun in terms of what he mentioned, Krish. I think a lot of organization in the journey of recruitment, right, we tend not to kind of budget enough for the candidate engagement piece, partially because it's put as a burden across to the recruitment functions, thinking that our recruiters will actually do the job. And nowadays, you see the business also slowly pitching in, right? HR is also now making them equally responsible for getting a part of the candidate engagement from their side. We have been associated for a long time, Krish, and many people kind of fail to not recognize the advantage of why a third party is sometimes necessary to kind of bridge that gap, right? Sometimes that entire view of third party, the comfort that a candidate sometimes get being speaking openly with an outsider who is not a part of the company that he or she is going to join makes it quite a bit of difference. So I think that's one area where we all need to invest from a HR fraternity standpoint of view, but it's improving as we speak right now.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's great. But thanks for that. So cool. So, I mean, I think the current buzzword in the HR fraternity, outside the HR fraternity, everybody's talking about AI. Elon Musk is on the headlines of every single newspaper. And naturally, there's enough and more conversation about how AI and HR needs to be integrated for better engagement. But having said that, at least one thing that I personally feel, and I think the general sentiment is that while AI is good, for some reason there is a general sentiment that it takes away the humanness, right? So we believe that while AI is good for process and adherence and stuff like that, it probably somewhere takes away the humanness, and we come from a society where we are very touchy feely. In fact, acing it is tagline is putting the human back in HR. So what do you think, Ajay, in terms of how do you think organizations need to leverage AI with the human intervention as far as candidate engagement is concerned? And do you see any potential risks involved, with this whole AI integration? And what do you think organizations can do to leverage both and, get the best of both worlds while ensuring, in my personal, I mean, I'd like to make sure that that's part of the question, while ensuring that the personal touch is not, impacted? Or would you feel that with time, maybe the personal touch is not important anymore?
Krish, I will take a bit of background to kind of give you this answer in a slightly extended way. I don't think AI has not become human yet, right? That's a major part of the evolution, right? It will take a lot more time. I'm pretty sure we will reach there at some point of time, because the way it has not learned empathy yet. The day that it learns empathy, then all of us are going to be in a bit of a fix. But that journey will take a bit of a time, is what I feel, Krish. But having said that, we humans still love to have that human interaction. At some point of time, as the AI evolution happens a lot more cleaner in the market, the people like us who are still humans, right, will understand who is talking. It at some point of time we have to give out that information, whether it is an AI calling or a person who is leaving and leaving, calling behind a call that is happening, right? That will be automatically becoming a part of all our laws which are there. Like GDPR is already moving towards that. DPDP will bring that to India at some point of time very soon, which will automatically figure out any contact that it has with humans. It has to state whether it is an AI or a human, right? That's one part.
All right.
The second part is going to yes, the second part, Krish, is going to be the way we are going to be interacting with people. When you are talking to people, not all, we are very complex creatures, right? We can't teach AI everything. At some point of time, some clever person out there in the market would ask a question which we may not have a logical answer, and at that point of time, machine will still take time to learn that and maybe get its self evolution. So it's a journey, Krish. I think we will learn to coexist at some point of time, maybe in a couple of years. But till that time, I still believe that human touch is very essential to keep that engagement factor in picture, right? Because we are seeing quite a bit of places in recruitment where the AI is taking over. For example, scheduling of interviews can be AI related jobs. Screening of resumes is already a AI related job. So which means that our recruiters are now getting a lot more time to do tasks which are more, what we call value add in nature. And for me, a value add is more of talking to a candidate in person and getting more information. The good thing about AI evolution so far, at least so far in the last 1 or 2 years that we have seen, is that now the recruiters are spending lesser time reviewing CV by CV, but instead having 10 or 15 CVs which are a lot more higher quality and speaking to only those relevant folks. So automatically they have more time to invest on a candidate page. So to answer your short, it's going to be a greatly looking more like a coexistence to start off with. I still don't, I'm not fully convinced that we can take the human element away from this entire equation, but it's about the quality of interactions that we're going to be having on a go forward with.
Sure. Cool. Hey, thank you so much, Ajay. So, Shindu, yeah, I mean, you come from hospitals. You're probably as close to humans as possible. What do you think in terms of AI? Both in the, I mean, you can throw some light in what's happening in the medical field also, but also from an HR standpoint, hospitals, AI has slowly crept in.
Well, Krish, AI has got its own merits, and to be fair, I mean, it is evolving by the day. I mean, what started off in the beginning and what we have today in a very short period of time is phenomenal. And what is predicted in the pace of growth that AI is growing is it will. So I mean, if you draw an analogy, the first television to hit mankind till the latest version, it took about 20 years for the new versions to come in. But from the time the first mobile came into our hands to the smartphone, and today everything being on this on the mobile, it just took us about 7 years. So AI is going to take a short period than that. So the evolution in my mind is going to be much faster. And AI is here to stay. The good thing, as I see about AI, is that it sort of evolves. And so it is about how we are able to use that, how we are able to program the requirement from AI is going to define the outcome from how we. And there is no point in saying that AI is feared or AI is something that is going to take away us. It is how we program AI to bolster and supplement what we are doing. That's the job that we have to get into. As far as our hospitals is concerned, we use AI. I don't think it's in a state where I can say that a lot of work happens on AI in hospitals. But the entire analytics that we do about our clinical outcomes, about a lot of things, entirely about the business outcomes, is on analytics, and part of that is on AI. But we are migrating gradually into trying to see if we can, and we are dabbling into it, that whether we can look at clinical outcomes also being brought into through AI. I mean, so influences through AI.
Nice. Oh, that's good to hear. But thanks for that. So yeah, so my next question, Srishan, is to you. You've heard Varun, you've heard Ajay. We spoke about the challenges that organizations are facing. But what do you think organizations can do, to strengthen overall candidate experience while making sure the brand perception improves? And considering that we are talking about the economics of candidate engagement, do you believe that organizations should look at investing more money? And more importantly, is money the differentiator? Because I hear this a lot, right? I mean, I wish I had more money to do this. I wish I had more money to do this. And sometimes I feel, to go and pat somebody on the back, you don't need money. So there is this, in my own head, I have this conundrum about, how much of it is money and how much of it is intent. So yeah, so over to you in terms of what do you think organizations can do to generally improve candidate experience, and I'm looking at what can be done to ensure it's done consistently. I think that's the keyword, and that's what's missing today.
Yes, so Krish, thanks for that. But I think, I completely agree to what both Varun and Ajay have spoken about the approach towards candidate experience. Okay, and if you ask me, I can easily break that up into two sections. One is the approach from a process standpoint. So your questions about whether you have a budget, whether that is factored as a process, a part of the workflow. Do you have a dedicated resource around that? All of that is something that comes under the process aspect of it. And then there is the other aspect, which is about brand. Now, when you are looking at candidate experience, you have to cover both sides of it. I mean, look at it from a process standpoint. You first have to define and streamline your application process. Is that process being sacrosanct across your organizations? I mean, I have 24 hospitals I run. Okay, now I've been here almost 7 years now, and in this 7 years, it has been a transition for me to get every hospital to run on one platform. We have taken up success factors. We have migrated into success factors very recently.
Right.
People are seeing the evident benefit of that, but to make that happen, we had to burn a lot of midnight oil, I must say. So that approach has to be there, that we need to be sync and singing in one. Many organizations which are much more evolved in that process, I'm sure Ajay will agree to that, would already have traversed that journey. And it all depends upon which company is at which state of evolution that the journey will be defined. The second, I think, when you talk about candidate experience, it should be about communication. It should be about giving some kind of communication. When I say communication, I take into account everything, feedback. From the first touch point to every touch point, you are looping back with the candidate, and I think that's where we miss the bus. And in many cases, I would say that for senior candidates, we do have more touch points than for when I'm looking at an entry level and doing mass hiring. But that's also sheerly because of the effort required on it. But some kind of communication should be there, even if it's an automated emailer which goes and says thank you for appearing for this for the process and the interview, and something that needs to sort of improve. And I think everybody will agree that we have a huge gap in that space.
Right.
Which also brings me to the third point, which is about interview experience. I mean, when I have worked in the Tatas and I've worked with TCS, very process-driven organization, and most IT companies are extremely process-driven. So where an interview would happen, you would get an email. What's the next step? Something or the other. There would be a fairly defined approach to that process. And then you would argue in that is where is the humanness in that? Where is the touch point? You are sending that same email to a person with 0 years of experience. You're sending that same email to somebody who's a senior consultant who's come to you.
Right.
And I think the game of success is about how do you differentiate between who will get that email and who will get a call. And that is what will define a successful process in candidate experience.
Right. Oh, cool. Great. Yeah, thank you so much. I think very useful. Warren, do you want to add something? I know I asked you a question about what companies don't do, but you want to add something, and given your geography experience across multiple jobs.
Just to continue what both Ajay and Shushendu said, that it's from a candidate's perspective, it's the blended approach which is the winning approach, right? I mean, I as a candidate wouldn't like it if there is a AI calling me to check how am I doing, because that just feels me a little bit more second-hand candidate than anyone else. That will just make me feel as if there's just an automated process trying to do it instead of someone really being caring and concerning about it. Whereas if there was a technology which was helping me through my query management, I would appreciate it. So yes, if there was an AI which was answering that, okay, how would my relocation be taken care of, and I was getting those prompt answers on the go, that I would appreciate that. But if there is a phone call coming to me from an AI bot saying that how are you doing, I would disconnect even before answering. So it's the blended approach which is the winning approach. And yes, I mean, from again what Shushendu touched upon, It doesn't take too much to actually keep that connect. It's only the focus. It's not about whether you have the whether it's important or not. I think we all of us agree that it's really important.
Right.
We also know that it's not going to cost too much, but it is just making sure that it stays a priority. It stays the focus to do that. I mean, involve candidates in your celebrations, share your wins with the candidate about the organization, periodic update, and keep those two-way channel of communication open. Will just keep your candidate not just engaged, but will also, he will have more energy when he or she joins the organization.
Right. Yeah. No. Great. Thanks for that. I think valid points. For all those people over here who are listening, and I hope you're enjoying yourselves. We will, spend some time towards the end where we will take audience questions. Request you to put your questions over there. Ashna is making a note, and we will kind of take some questions towards the end. I have a slightly lighter question now. It's something that I've actually kind of pondered around a bit, and I'm going to open this to all the three panelists here, and you can choose not to necessarily agree with each other. So historically, most companies have been looking at a 90-day notice period, and the reason I believe they look at a 90-day notice period is to kind of make it slightly more difficult for this guy to get a job somewhere else. But having said that, I've heard many views on, no, you know what, there is knowledge transfer. When somebody leaves, there's a lot of information to do, stuff like that. But I generally believe that they do that because they're making it tough, right? And now because it's 90 days, it's difficult to get a job, and you can't leave immediately because everybody get into that rut. But then there's a lot of noise today on why we should not make it a 90-day and we should make it a 30-day. I tend to agree there, but I'm obviously looking at your views also, because I somehow feel that if somebody's disengaged and you keep that person there for 90 more days, it's a lot more pressure on the organization to keep that employee happy for the 90 days. Otherwise, he just starts bad mouthing and says kind of wrong stuff. But so in my head, I've never really got it. So I'm kind of looking at views here. Ajay, you can start. What do you think? 30-day, 90-day, or do we do a hybrid again?
Krish, let me first pray that it stays 90 days. Otherwise, you're going to lose your
Oh,
job.
see, yeah, that's what I thought.
That would be my first take for you.
Sure.
I'm a firm believer that there should be a notice period time, but again, as a personal opinion, 90 is a pretty big of a stretch, Krish, is what I feel.
Okay.
But this is a topic that I think the whole of the industry or the companies in the ecosystem has to speak together and make a decision, because
Correct.
if one
Correct.
company decides for 30 versus another at 90, then automatically other issues start up, right? The poaching and other things. So as long as we have an agreement across the board as a country together, I think it's a good decision to have. For me, the logic is very simple, Krish. If it is 90 days across for all companies, even then you would still have the issue of knowledge transfer, because you have to remember that no manager starts their backup hiring the moment somebody resigns, right? So if somebody is actually starting their hiring effort, let's say 15 days after somebody resigns, you theoretically have only like 75 days to kind of backfill a person. And by the time the other person resigns and come on board, there is no knowledge transfer that theoretically happens from a system standpoint of view. So knowledge transfer should be ideally a system which can be done offline without a person in nature. That's always what I feel as a manager, and when I'm managing a team. So not a big believer of huge notice period in the market, but I think there should be still notice periods available to kind of keep the sanctity of work available. But I would love to hear that from both Shishendu and Varun from there.
Yeah. Shishendu, your views? What is it in the hospital? Sorry, I'm not aware. Do you do a 90-day too?
So actually, we have a hybrid. So because if you see, the core of my hospitals is doctors, right? And all the doctors are usually they're professionals. They come on consulting assignments, so they're on professional contracts, which technically you cannot have anything more than 30 days unless it's a one-on-one. I mean, principal to principal, then you can tweak it and make it whatever you want. But essentially, governance-wise, you can keep it only 30 days. So if you look at it from an outcome point of view, the set of people who are actually driving this entire business, which is the doctors, they are there for 30 days. So they have a 30-day notice period. As for the and for the other for the administrators and people who are running the business and all that stuff, we have a graded approach. At some levels we have 30 days, some levels 60 days, and some level at 90 days. But I agree with what Ajay is saying. I think, see, it's not just about defining a date or a number. It's not about 30 days or 90 days. It's about how you are engaging with the person who has decided to move. Fair enough. And it's easier to blame
Agree.
that person saying that he's completely engaged. Can you keep
Agree.
that person engaged for those 90 and 60, 90 or 60 days so that he actually does a worthwhile handover to the next person?
Right.
I have also worked in setups, Krish, where the person actually helped get the successor in place before he moved out.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great model. That should be that should at least be a model that's encouraged. But that's the whole, I guess, the thing about succession planning and all of that companies are trying to get at, right? Yeah, cool. Varun, your views?
No, so I agree with the approach with Shishendru mentioned. I mean, you can't have blanket 90 days across, and you can't have a blanket 30 days across. When you think about your C-suite, senior leadership level, you do want a higher notice period, because let's say someone decides to leave just before an important meeting, or just before your budgeting cycle, or critical moments in the organization where 30 days notice period is just too short. And then you wouldn't want to, I mean, the intent shouldn't be to just lock in your talent at mid management and junior level by imposing a 90-day period. So somewhere a balance between the two is required, where your mid management and junior people are on either 30 or 60-day notice period, and your C-suite remains on a 90-day period. Also keeping in mind that that 90-day period is actually used to find an alternate candidate, to try and bring that alternate candidate on board and complete the handover process. Because often, and I've seen this, that even after the 90-day period is over, the replacement is still not there, and the handover is still taken by someone internally, and the candidate moves on, and then the employee moves on, and the candidate joins a couple of months later. That's what ends up happening most of the time.
Sure. Okay. But yeah, I mean, on a lighter note, nothing like keeping the passport with you. No, I mean,
that doesn't happen anymore. Okay, don't.
I know, so that's a myth, right? It doesn't happen anymore. Is that so? That's what that.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. That's practically, I mean, yeah, one of the archaic practices which used to happen in the Middle East. But
okay, thank God for that. No, because in fact, like, yeah, okay, but I'm glad it doesn't happen anymore. Cool. So the next question I have is another thing that I've always wanted to wonder. So like Ace English does a lot of exit interviews, and during a lot of conversation that we have with our clients, etc., we're always talking about cost of attrition, and typically there's a formula that says that 1.5 times the time your CTC is a cost of attrition. But unfortunately, I've not heard that around cost of decline, or maybe I don't know if it exists and I'm not aware of it. But I'm just trying to wonder is, how do you, like, if I were to come, like when I'm talking to companies about attrition, it's a lot more easier to try and explain to them what the financial impact is. But when I'm talking to companies about why they should be focusing on candidate experience, why is candidate engagement important, why should you not have declines, it becomes a little difficult for us to be able to peg it at a very monetary kind of a level, because I don't know the math, nor have I found enough stuff on Google to kind of look at, okay, this is how you calculate it, like how we have for cost of exit. So opening it out to all three of you, saying, if we were to do this, if there's already a method, happy to learn. I'm sure the audience will also gain from this. But otherwise, what do you think are the parameters that we should be looking at when you look at cost of decline?
So I'll go first. If
You'll go first. Yeah, great. Thanks.
To be honest, it should be the productivity loss. What is it that business is losing out in their sales or in their productivity in that period when the candidate has refused to join, and the next person has accepted the offer. So if you have lost 2 to 3 months, it's the productivity loss of the business, and that number is much bigger than 1.5 times the salary. That number is pretty huge. And
so you're saying the cost of decline will actually be more than the cost of attrition?
Yes. Right? So what has essentially happened is that during the decline period, so you anticipated a candidate to join, let's say, candidate to join your business in January, right? And all preparations were being made, and the candidate was supposed to come on board in January, and you were supposed to then close on your sales. I mean, it's easier to calculate in terms of sales. So you were supposed to work on a sales deal from January onwards and then close that sales deal in March. Now, candidate didn't join in January. Candidate actually joined in March, which means your sales deal gets closed somewhere in April or May. So you've lost two months of revenue in that period. I'm oversimplifying it, but essentially that's what it is. It's a productivity loss. So the business opportunity loss and the productivity loss is the real way to look at it.
So
Done.
if I can pick up that, I think Varun has a very valid example over here, Krish. And while if you look at the larger picture, probably a decline cost is already built into your total TAT, because
Right.
yeah. So and it comes back to how you are looking at the entire process of hiring. When you have a candidate who signed the dotted line, do you stop the process? Because if you do, your risk of running a longer TAT and the candidate decline goes up significantly. As if you sign the dotted line with with a candidate, but you continue the search and keep seeing candidates. So if even if that the first candidate declines at the nth moment, you still have a backup to backfill. Otherwise, what you do is essentially your TAT starts at 0 on the day of the decline.
Right.
Yeah, but Shishendra, again, even when we do that, we can't forget that there is a notice period which your second candidate will have to serve. So
That's
no matter
exactly.
even if you have kept other backup candidates warm and you're ready to make an offer the very next day, you still got to wait for that 90-day period of
Absolutely.
notice period. So that time is huge.
Yeah, absolutely, Varun. So that's exactly what I'm saying. Is from the date of decline is essentially where your additional cost or delta cost for the new hire is going to begin.
Yeah.
Right. But how do you peg the productivity loss? I mean, how do you give a number to it? Well, I understand conceptually that Ajay, you can pitch in, but what's the number? What's the amount?
Krish, agreeing with what Varun and Srishendu are saying, but my approach would be a little more a hybrid of both the approaches that they have actually mentioned. For me, any seat which is lying vacant beyond that time, for example, if somebody is opening a role, because if you look at theoretically from a corporate standpoint of view, roles come from only two methodologies, right? One, somebody is leaving, or somebody is actually getting replaced in that role. Either ways,
Sure.
there are going to be offer declines on both the positions, whether it is a new position or a replacement position. If you are pegging at a company level, saying that I would get somebody onboarded in a realistic time of, let's say, 90 days time, which is a time to fill off a role. For me,
Right.
a straightforward calculation for that role would be to have that position, any role which is not getting fulfilled with that X amount of time. And again, by industry, that time would change, Krish, and by position,
Sure.
the time would change. The
Correct.
lesser the experience, automatically we can get the role filled a lot more faster. So if you have the time to fill for each of the roles, then automatically with what Varun mentioned, any day that is going above and beyond that date multiplied by either a revenue which is getting generated from that role or the revenue loss. For example, companies like us, which are more of GDCs, where we are billing back our parent company certain amount of money by the hour, that actually also is a revenue loss for us as a GDC unit. And we are actually a mixed model, right? We have people who are sales and service professionals who go out and gain money for us from the market, as well as whatever we write as a code is being billed back to our parent company. So if you have those as the total number of hours and billing per hour as a cycle, any days beyond that, if that position is lying vacant for us, is theoretically the lost
Got
the
it.
revenue.
Understood. Right. No, that makes sense. So typically every single person would somewhere you should be able to get to a bill per hour, because I think that's possible. You multiply it by that by the number of days that position has been vacant because of whatever reason, decline or resource management problem, not able to predict, etc., etc. That would be the formula that you get. Okay,
On a question,
cool.
remember that in all corporates, not all roles are billing generated also, right? For example, if I'm
That's
hiring
true.
buffers into a role, or if I'm hiring a bench into the company, those, even if I'm losing time on offers, or if I'm having offer declines, for me, theoretically there is no loss over there. If I'm
Right.
hiring graduate engineers, for example, right? If there are few people who decline the offer there, theoretically for me there is no big loss for me from a revenue standpoint. So we have to define those positions, and healthiness generally actually calculate that, because we have our HPS methodologies in terms of how we calculate or other losses or leaks in the system because of all of these things. And mostly we actually go with what I told you as a methodology for calculating that.
Got it. Okay. Cool. Great. Thank you very much for that. I think we should take some audience questions. Ashna, do you have a list ready? Do we have any questions that... You're on mute, Ashna.
Sorry, yeah, we do have. In fact, the last one was about measuring and tracking, etc. So there's one that talks about data analytics. So maybe we can take this first. How can companies use data analytics to improve the candidate journey, optimize onboarding, and see benefits for higher retention and productivity? So what are some of the metrics that are being tracked today, and what more can be done on that front?
Krish, can I take that?
Yeah, okay, Ajay, you want to take that? Ashna, just direct the question to somebody.
Okay, so Krish, I will answer that. It's a pretty broad question because from every section, from the time of offer till we onboard, there are multiple metrics that we can actually do. But let's, for the interest of time and also the topic that we are discussing, let's more talk about from the time we offer till we onboard, right? Which is more of an engagement standpoint. For me, one of the key metrics is actually definitely the rack status, Krish and team. For example, what is statistically, what is the probability of this candidate joining us, right? For me, that's a key metric that I would actually kind of have. Number of touch points that from the organization that we have with the candidate, be virtual as well as personal touch points that we have. The candidate satisfaction towards the journey. So an NPS score, which very clearly articulating how much the candidate was happy, one, prior to the process offer, in terms of how it is doing that, and then how it is actually kind of translating to an onboarding experience. For me, if I have these three metrics handy and key in front of me, I think most of the time my journey or my key metrics for that candidate onboarding is a success. But beyond and above that, there are multiple million other metrics. But from the subject that we are talking right now, I think these would be the three topics for me to kind of like go along.
So just mention those three again, just for the audience again. One is
definitely the rack status, the candidate experience scores that we are actually going to be having, and the number of touch points that we had with the candidate.
Got it. Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Anybody else wants to add something, or Ashna, do you want to take the next question?
Okay. What emerging trends in candidate experience should candidates be aware of? And I think it's also in line with the next question that somebody else has put up. How can technology and automation be leveraged to enhance candidate experience? So are there any new trends or any new stuff around this that we need to talk about?
Can I take this?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Sure, yeah.
So I think the latest trend, or what is advisable in terms of enhancing this experience, is not just a one-way communication. I mean, often candidate experience is seen as us as organization trying to know what's going on in candidates' life. You know, if they've resigned from their previous company, they have started on notice period, how are they thinking of their relocation, etc., etc. I think now it is time where we open up our information to them. As I said, sharing the company updates, company changes that may have happened during that journey, involving them in any meetings or involving them in conferences if possible, if logistically possible, and confidentiality clauses allowed to do that, then having that two-way communication, I think that stands a longer way. So you've sort of engaged the candidate in your organization, or you've sort of inducted them even before their day one.
Right.
And I'm even more excited, and they land with with some knowledge about your organization, knowledge about the culture of the organization before they have even joined.
Right.
Okay.
Cool.
Isma, I think your question on communication strategies has just been answered. I think he's spoken about that, so I'll leave that out. Technology and automation, we've already spoken about it. Emerging trends in candidate engagement, we have spoken about it. So if you do a customized candidate engagement program, how can the TA teams quantify the benefits of this? So is there a way and method to quantify the benefits of a customized candidate engagement program?
I think
often
But
it's
isn't that something we already spoke about? Sorry. I think when we were speaking about the quantitative methodology to define the impact of having a candidate experience, it relates to the same thing, isn't it? So if you have a good
Right.
candidate experience, your candidate loss ratio would significantly drop.
Right. Yeah. And also, I
I
think for some reason, sorry, you want
To
to, sorry,
add
what?
to that,
Huh.
it's you can, if I was to think, there could be other measures. So candidate loss is the most drastic situation one could be in. But if you've started engaging with candidates to measure their performance and measure their engagement level 6 months after they've joined the organization, and comparing it with those earlier, might also be a good matrix to see if this process has made any improvement. I mean, have the candidates joined happier, and have they stayed longer with the organization? Has that
Yeah.
had any impact on early attrition? That might also be a good matrix to look at.
Correct. Yeah. No, it does tie up. Also, I think for some reason, I've always felt like with the whole, conversation that I've had with talent leads, a lot of people associate candidate experience with, candidate declining, right? So, which means when I engage with a third party like Ace Engage on candidate experience, my expectation is my joining ratio should improve. I somehow like to, peel the two apart, right? And I'm saying candidate experience should be about every candidate, irrespective of whether they join or not. Go back and say, you know what, this company was absolutely wonderful. I may not have joined this company, but I think they were great. And that's how you continuously build brand perception. But a lot of times, I think the views are a bit short sighted where people are saying, I want my joining ratio to improve. And sometimes the joining ratio improvement may not necessarily be in any of our hands. And going back to the question that was being asked, I think it's important to look at how do we ensure that we continuously give a great candidate experience and therefore brand, better brand perception. And as an outcome, your joining ratio may tend to, improve gradually with time.
I think
Vishal, can I add something over there? Good point,
Sure,
actually.
yeah.
Ideally, you should, if you are measuring that, right, it should be how bad a candidate feels when he or she is actually declining the offer, right? That's how that a candidate
Oh, nice.
experience. So as long as you are giving that great experience,
Yeah.
and making sure that the candidate, because if you give a great experience, last minute surprises also are generally very less, because they also feel bad about giving last minute
Correct.
surprises, and then they proactively see decline is not something that, because there can be multiple other reasons for people declining offers other than
Agreed.
compensation itself, right? So it's about giving that experience and making sure that the candidate at some point of time feels like reapplying back and then taking us through the journey, and also most importantly talking to their circle to tell them about how great the company experience was, right, during that
Right.
journey.
Correct. No, but that's an interesting point. Sorry, go
Can I
on. Yeah.
add to that? So there could be two other ways, I mean, two additional ways to look at it. That have there been early warning signals? Have there been early warnings in case of a potential decline? And has there been a situation where a potential decline situation was salvaged? So that is another way to look at the efficiency of having a third party do this process for you. I mean, not just look at overall decline ratio, but also look at it that decline happened and that had to happen. But there was enough warning for us to keep our process on to have another candidate as a backup. And was there a candidate who was potentially could have turned into a decline, but the situation was salvaged? So that
Right.
are other very hard matrix which can be measured.
True. Also, the other thing that, yeah, and I'm asking this question to all of you, is that I somehow feel that there are not enough, like, while there's a lot of conversation around candidate engagement, I don't know if, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if recruiters, recruitment teams, etc., are being measured against metrics, right? So how many times should you engage with the candidate on a weekly basis? Do you lose a point when every time a candidate declines? So are there internal metrics, and I'd like you to help me with this, are there internal metrics that recruiters are held against for disengagement or candidate declining, etc.? Does that happen today?
So if I can just take that, I don't
Sure,
know.
sir.
Maybe probably Varun and Ajay especially on this would have more a more concrete answer.
Right.
But Krish, I would like to push you back on this, if I may, on
Okay.
this forum as well. And I ask you,
Uh.
if you want that human connect, how can you have everything metrics? How can you, if the moment you put it as a metrics for the recruiter, he will
Okay.
do that call for the sake of doing
For the
that
sake
call,
of doing it.
right?
Right.
And is that what you really want?
Correct. But the
I
lack
think,
of
sorry,
but
I'm
does
just
the
saying that I think that in this attempt of getting metrics around every aspect of human resources, we are losing the human, the
yeah,
part of
yeah, I hear you. I
So
hear
I
you.
think
I hear.
we need
But
to
going
really
back
keep
to
that.
there's also sorry, go on.
Yeah,
Sorry.
sorry, go ahead.
I was saying that, there's that quote that talks about if you don't measure it, you can't improve it, something like that. So, so I'm just saying, is there a while yes, I completely am with you, right? And I'm as human as I mean I'm that school of thought. But sometimes I feel that just having some kind of a guideline may be useful. And I think my question was coming from that.
Which
Yeah, Jay.
I agree with Srishan, but I think it's like putting a gun on your recruiter's head every time somebody takes it.
Exactly.
Correct. Yeah.
For me, the only thing that I really look from a recruiter is predominantly the number of touch points, right? Are they reachable? Are they available for a candidate, right? Because if I start putting the gun on a recruiter, then I have to start putting the gun on the hiring manager also, because they are
Sure,
also
of course.
equally
Yeah. Across the hierarchy.
engaging with the candidate and bringing them on board. But for me, two metrics. One is the number of touch points and how accurate their rack status is, right? Because a lot of them are gut calls. When you speak to a candidate, how the attitude, the kind of emotions they are evoking on a call or a touch point, and the recruiter coming back much ahead to us and saying that I have a very strong feeling that this candidate may not actually join us, right? From a hiring standpoint of view, gives us enough heads up time for the hiring manager to go out to the market and create backups or even give buffer offers, right? That itself is a great metric to kind of like measure a recruiter on. But we can't make them liable for making a candidate join, because for example, if a company is actually paying benchmarks or lesser than benchmark salary, and the candidates are declining multiple times, there's a issue with the company or the structure in which you are hiring from an overall standpoint, right? There are also market conditions. There are certain skill sets which are very hot in the market most of the time, and if you offer how much ever money, there will be still people who may be still losing out on, or on other recruiters who are losing out on offers. So that's how I think it should be. As long as recruiters gives us enough heads up on if the candidate is going to join or the number of touch points are good enough, I think we should. That should make a great.
Yeah. So what both of you are saying is you don't need a metric. Just make sure that you encourage them to engage with the candidates wholeheartedly, and you will get the desired outcome. Is the general view. Okay.
Last
Ashnab,
question. Yeah, last question. There are two of them, but I think on similar lines. There's Karthik who's asking, what are some examples of how candidate feedback has directly influenced changes in hiring process? And another user asking, if you get a negative feedback from candidates, how do you improve the hiring process? I think more or less on the same lines. Any examples that maybe the three of you have about how some feedback was actually taken and changes to the hiring process was made?
Ashan, I can actually kind of minute to kind of respond to that. Varun, if you have started, go ahead, please. I can go next.
But I like the enthusiasm. Nice.
Varun, go ahead.
I would think that there are plenty of examples of that. I think at every step of the way, if there's any feedback received from the candidate prior to offer or after offer, or even after the candidates have joined and become employee, the entire process is relooked at. Like some of them have come back and said that your offer letter is too lengthy, too complicated. We don't understand it, and we've gone ahead and simplified it. Some people have come and said that there was not enough information on certain aspects, especially candidates who are relocating and they didn't know information about the city they're moving into, the schooling over there and all, and that has been incorporated in the information packs which are sent to the candidate. So I think overall, it is always the feedback mechanism has always helped us improve the overall hiring process, and it continues to do so. So we continuously, or I'm speaking on behalf of my colleagues as well. So that we continuously listen to candidates and incorporate that wherever necessary.
Great. Ajay, if you have anything to add, please go ahead.
Yeah, so just a quick one, Ashton. I think something that we actually do generally is always monitoring the media, right, in terms of social media, our websites, in terms of what the candidate leaves as a feedback. Feedbacks can come either directly through emails or very frustrated feedbacks can directly go onto the web itself, right? So, and when we have bad feedbacks, the first thing that we do is making sure that we personally reach out and talk to the candidate, right? Because when you start probing, one, they feel better, and second is we get to a little more detailing in terms of why it happened, so that we actually can take care of the processes. We even get feedback stating that the hiring manager was not empathetic on the call or was asking too many personal questions. These are things which are very hygiene related, right? And it may not be fully processed, but there are certain things that may give us insight into what our hiring manager and interview panel behavior is also, which is one of the biggest faults in the system, right? See, processes can be anything else, but I think the people touch points sometimes frustrates a lot of candidates. So as long as you are keeping your ears open in terms of what are the feedback which are landing upon our desk as well as on our web, and one acting immediately upon them, that's important. So if whenever we having this kind of issue, reaching out to them and then checking on each of the issues always helps.
Great. I think both of you have touched upon one, going back to the individual and also going back to the process to make the corrections required so that it doesn't reoccur. Okay. Anything from you, Sushendu, on that before we?
I not in the current context, but I've worked in companies where usually it's not during the pre-onboarding, but post-onboarding, we've had, we have had a culture of skip levels, and we would put up the new joiners in a room and sort of give them a kind of a coffee break with one of our senior leaders, and it could be in rotation. And we would pick up clean experiences from there and then feed it back into the systems to say how we can make our onboarding and induction better, how we can make our hiring better, how we can make our candidate search selection better. So yeah, I mean, there are many touch points which you can take. You just have to take the relevant data points from there and see what really makes sense.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, I think we've taken all the questions that were there, Krish. There are a few which are repetitions. They're still talking about strategies and things like that, which we've already spoken about. So I'm not picking them up specifically.
Done. Cool. Yeah. So I think we are coming to, we're almost close to 5. And we'd like to kind of stick to a timeline. But once again, thank you very much. Each one of you, very grateful, really appreciate it. Hope you had a good time. We'll know if you agree to come for another webinar. So we kind of watch out on that. But yeah, do provide us with feedback. We're happy to learn. And for all the audience who's here, extremely thankful for being here, spending 1 hour with us. We value your time and we're really honored to have you with us. But thank you once again, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ashna,
Thank you for having us, Krish. Thank you, Ashna.
Thank you
Totally
so
our
much.
pleasure.
Thank you to the audience who have been tolerating us.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm hoping it was a learning experience. But I thoroughly had a lot of fun, and I've taken down notes. And I'm definitely going to incorporate. We run a candidate engagement program for our clients, and I'm definitely going to take some of the feedback that you guys provided, some of the ideas that you guys gave. We're going to incorporate that back onto our own candidate engagement program, so that clients who engage with us, stand to gain. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.